Shaping What's Next, How AI and Composable Tech Unlock Creativity and Strategy. Help me welcome Sam Goebel, Digital Strategist at Exentium.
On in, grab a seat. Let's see. Let's get the presentation up and rolling. Maybe. Sorry. I mean, I could sit here and talk, nonstop, so. I can see it. Let's see. If I advance it, will it work? Sort of. Hang on. Okay, there we go. All right, so are you guys all AI'd out at this point? I have some good stuff to talk to you about related to that, though, that's not just about, hopefully it's not the same old boring stuff. One of the things I've been thinking a lot about is, yes, we have AI, it's here, show of hands, who's using it at their company in some way, shape, or form? Yep, it's pretty typically everybody at this point in some way. I'm still seeing, though, what I think is a lot of missed opportunity, and that's what we're going to talk about a bit today. So my name is Sam Goebel, and I'm VP of Digital at Exentium. Exentium is a essentially boutique tech agency, but we also provide a lot of services that support marketers. So we do everything from design strategy, website redesign, platform selection, but a lot of the work these days is in sort of much smaller but really powerful bites. It's not so much, hey, we're going to take a year to redesign a website. It's a little bit more, how do we solve some of these immediate problems and drive value? So again, a little bit more about us. This is an example of all the services that we offer. We differ a little bit from the larger agencies in that we staff our projects in a really lean way. And so half the time, customers that we work with, their extended teams have no idea that we don't work directly within that company. Let's get into the meat of things, though. We do have quite a lot of experience in the financial services realm, so you'll see some big players here, and you'll also see some more commercial, moderately sized credit unions, banks, etc. That's just a quick example. But I want to talk a bit about what I'm seeing in the trenches. So most of you here are working in the industry. I'm working a little bit outside of it and have perspective not just of financial services, but kind of a broader ecosystem. So my company, Exentium, works across the board. If you gave me a vertical, I could probably name you a customer that we've worked with in that vertical before. But what everybody's talking about, whether they're a FinServ customer of ours, we work with a lot of associations, we work with a lot of e-commerce, everybody's talking about AI. I was on the phone with someone who was inquiring about our services last week, and she asked the usual question, well, tell me what you do with AI. How much time do you have? So everybody's talking about it, and it seems like most folks are still, each silo within the org tends to work with AI a little bit differently. There's not necessarily a unified approach. So you might have your IT folks who are using it to audit code or do QA or speed up development. You might have your marketing folks where somebody who's doing your content writing might start their initial draft using Copilot or ChatGPT. Not everyone is looking at it big picture, though, and I think that's the next step of what most folks are going to be talking about. And I would imagine that if you're doing things that are beyond, hey, somebody's just using AI to do a rough draft before they actually dig in further, you're going to have to look at compliance and policy and legal and all of that kind of good stuff. I am not here to sell you a whole bunch of tools, but I do have some really cool stuff to show you if you'd like to see what's possible, and that's what I'm going to be talking about here today. So there's always Exentium looks at it sort of by function of where that AI is used. So there's, of course, the Gen AI, which could be creating outbound content in your social, on your website. It could also, the Gen AI could also be using that to drive code development. So if you have any, internal platforms that are used to drive the business, there is opportunity to improve quality and improve throughput through Gen AI of tech. There's, of course, the agentic. You've got the front end, customer service chatbot type of stuff. You've also got some internal customer service stuff. Very similar, but helping to empower those customer service teams where you can do a whole lot more with a little bit less headcount. That goes to that scaling. And then, of course, the thing I'm probably talking the second most about is AI search. Now, that could be empowering AI search on your website. But I'd love to see a show of hands at this point. So y'all said you're using AI. How many of you are actively looking at how your presence and how your brand shows up in an outside AI search? If you're not, that should be right next to your SEO plan for 2026. So hopefully you guys already know this, but I'm going to get on a little bit of a side soapbox right now, which is that just because you have great relevant content on your socials, on your website, it does not mean that the AI search engines out there, number one, they can't always access that content. And number two, they might not be accessing the right content. I would imagine that most of us, if your website is more than a couple years old, there's the possibility that you have content out there that somebody published that's not, not super important, but it's still sitting out there. It's no longer relevant, and you're not worried about it because nobody really goes to that page, and maybe you took it out of your navigation. Well, guess what? AI can see it. They're scraping the whole thing. They're not just looking at the sitemap that you fed to Google. So one of the things that could be a piece of low-hanging fruit to clean up is take a quick audit of that content, not just what's on your website, but other stuff that might be out there. And make sure that you know what those detractor points might be, things that might be diluting your brand or even representing your brand in the wrong way. Which gets us to GEO, SEO. I'm always curious about the personalization question. So I've been doing this for roughly 15 years. And I've, being a digital strategist for years, it was just all about personalization all the time. How many of you are doing personalization currently? Okay, I'm not even going to get to my next question to differentiate between that. This is a small group, so maybe some of you can shout out answers. Why aren't you doing personalization? This is not, that sounded really challenging. I'm more just asking. Privacy? Any other reasons? Bad data? That, if you guys didn't hear, that was competing priorities. There's lots of reasons that we don't get to this stuff. I would say in my experience, usually the biggest reason is that organizations are blocking themselves. It seems like a really big, scary task. It seems very risky. And folks have a hard time being able to actually tie, go through the whole attribution model, okay, how does this actually help us or not? Right, because those are questions that the C-suite's going to ask you, and so sometimes marketers just go, okay, it's not worth it. There's some great tools out there, and there's also some pretty simple ways that you can achieve certain things. But again, going back to the session before, we all need to think about this stuff truly from an outcomes-only perspective. Nobody has the time, budget, or frankly, patience anymore within their companies to have this long lead time of how long it's going to take you to deliver some value and have something to show for that work. Which gets me to that last section, Got another question. How many of you know what composable technology is? Okay. How many of you are on a SaaS CMS? All right. I ask because everybody's a little different. You're exposed to stuff if it's relevant to you. You're not if it's not. Composable technology has been around for quite a while. It has picked up in popularity over the last, I would say, 3 years or so. And there's a bunch of huge benefits. For financial services, they've been a little bit slower to adopt because initially there are always compliance concerns and compliance risks with anything that's SaaS, so it's totally understandable. But what I can tell you is that for my company, we're several years in, and all the things that the technology promised, faster delivery, easier for marketers and content people to use, easy to integrate with other things, less expensive and less risky overall, it has actually all come to fruition. And I've got some data and numbers on that from projects that we can talk about offline. But what it means, if you looked at those last 3, composable technology truly, we're rolling out website redesigns in weeks. Now, the key to that is that the client has to be ready to go with their content and with their decisions, et cetera. But the technology and the consulting services around it cost a heck of a lot less. So if any of you are looking at considering a website redesign, and you're using, and the C-suite is looking at it with this old lens of, well, the last time we did this, it cost us $1 million and took us 18 months. If anybody comes into your company and tells you that's what it's going to cost, run, because that is not how things work anymore. They are truly much faster. They definitely cost you less. And you're able to meet those customer needs and those internal needs much quicker. I will also tell you that they will leverage things like AI really easily, and it is not coming for anyone's, well, I'm going to say it's not coming for anyone's job yet. As long as your job is to, at least at some level, do some strategic thinking. The only people whose job AI is coming for in my mind right now are the people whose only job is to go, yep, that's what I'm supposed to do, and they just do the thing. If you're still required to think, you're still good. All right, I think I've got a couple of Optimizely folks in here. I stole this slide from you guys. So Optimizely is one of our tech partners. And the example that I'm going to show you some screenshots of and that I can demo is built on their technology. But this generally applies across the board. I love this because it feels like the old personalization matrix that, 5-10 years ago we would use about, okay, when the crawl, walk, run thing. I love this, though. I don't think anybody is still in that awareness stage yet. I think just about everybody is at least in the active stage, more or in that operational stage, right? They have their different silos who have a set way of, this is how we're using AI within our org, and they're talking within that silo. If you're going to get to that systematic one, though, this is where things start to look really interesting to somebody like me, who's interested in okay, great, we can use it to speed things up. It's, it's kind of like if you look at any, huge business-changing, world-changing things, assembly line, blah, 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 blah. That's kind of what this is so far, and that what I've seen it be so far, of great, we can get out more, we can execute more campaigns, we can execute more experiments, we can, get our content out. Our content pipeline moves a lot faster. We don't have as much in the backlog. I think that's scratching the surface. I think the opportunities are really in that cultural shift, that change management of, okay, now that we have these tools, and now that we don't have the typical marketing story of okay, guys, I want to think about all that other stuff, but I can't because we're underwater with this small team that we have. You can take that small team and start to build a culture of, okay, great, we've got AI, we're using it to automate some things, but now let's really start to think and iterate and be creative. There's a stat out there, It's a Harvard Business Review study. If any of you were at Opticon, they talked about this quite a bit there. But this idea that the vast majority of people are using Gen AI to get to that good enough state, check a box, and send something off. That's what the average person tends to do. Okay, this is grammatically correct, nothing about it is off-brand, okay. The folks who are really making something with that AI and taking that opportunity to look at that content and go, great, this is passable. We're not differentiated from any other brand. This looks the same as everybody else's stuff, and they're taking that time to really dig into that creative side and challenging that AI result of, okay, this is all right, but what if? What if it looked like something else? And they're getting that human touch. Those are the folks that are driving some really, really excellent results because they're using AI as a thought partner. They're not just using it to generate and do a job. They're using it to bounce those ideas off of. And so to get to that transformational stage, I don't think we're that far away from it. And the tools, if you don't have them to execute on some of the AI stuff, if you still have a lot of in that orchestration of campaigns, like, okay, we can generate the content, but I still have to go through the same 20 steps, bouncing around from different systems and going to a bunch of different teams to get this thing done. There's a few tools that can tie those things together and really make that easy to do. So we're trying to get there. What do we need? Modern digital. Hopefully you guys are all there or have that on your radar. That brand unification, that's not that hard to do. Love to talk to you guys more about it, but that's a different presentation. But definitely that change management idea. I want you guys to go back to your orgs and go, okay, so if we're using AI, where might we have opportunity to connect the really smart people that we have working with us and get them in a room and get them spitballing and bouncing ideas? How much time can we free up for them to do that and keep everything else moving as well? I would also suggest on the how that AI, now's the time to get the different silos, have some way of connecting. Who are those AI leaders on the different teams? What are they doing? Because even though their function might be totally different from yours, there might be things that cross over. There might be things that the way marketers work, we're not even thinking about some of that stuff, but the way your IT is thinking about it, there may be certain applications and certain things that they could help with, for example, that could really alleviate some of your pain points. I said this a little bit at the beginning, I'm gonna say it again. Building websites today is so much easier than it was 3 years ago. I will tell you that our developer headcount at our company has stayed the same because what it truly does is it frees them up from they're building the same hero component for the 1,000th time. They're thinking about, okay, what else can we do? What else can we do with that time? Managing them should be way easier. I do have an example. Again, I'm not here to sell you on buy all the new stuff, but I want to show you what's possible. So Exenium built an accelerator specifically for financial services that is built, this one happens to be built on Optimizely SaaS CMS. But the neat part with all the composable stuff and the Optimizely stuff is you don't have to buy all the things. You could have a piece of it. But one of the things that we did, if you have other CMS demos, they might be like, oh yeah, here's our homepage, our hero component, and they've got a couple of other things, and frankly, it's all just a bunch of promos and CTAs with an image and a button and some text in different formatting. What we did was we added things to it that are really specific to financial services. So rate calculators, fund reports, product comparisons, you can see all this stuff here, and if you're interested, I can share this with you. The benefit to this, so when I told you that building that website, this is why it can take weeks. And the cool part about the way this stuff works is the data pieces, all the parts that make up the components, those are totally separated from the way it looks. So most people are going to go, yeah, that's really nice, but I don't want a cookie cutter website. I want something that's unique, that looks like my brand. These SaaS composable platforms, that's what they offer, among other things. So if you want to be really excited about this, give me 2 days. We'll book a call, and I can show you this thing that looks like your site and your content, because it is that fast and that easy. One of the other things that I love about sort of this new way of working is that, historically website projects, marketers and content authors were like the last people who got to touch the website. How many of you have gone through, like, start to finish, a whole website redesign and replatform? Okay, keep your hands up. How many of you felt like you were totally rushed on having to get the content into that website before you launched? Most of you. This flips this on its head. So remember I said, like, there's all the parts, it can look one way, but all the text, etc., is kind of separated. The way these projects work now is it's usually at a week, but I try to be truthful in my advertising, so I put under 2 weeks. The second that project starts, marketers can start to get their hands on the new system. They can start entering the content, playing around with it, so you no longer have that rush. And oh, by the way, there's also AI tools to script the content that's staying into the new system, which, again, is how this stuff costs a lot less and takes a lot less time. And what you're looking at here is our financial services accelerator. It's something I can show you and demo for you, both front end. I can also show you the back end, the content management side. This is a quick example of some of those financial services specific components. And what this means is this stuff is out of the box. So ready to go the second we, spin that thing up for you. It's all there. It is also ready to connect to your APIs. So one of the things I hear is like, yeah, that's great. We've got the CMS, but oh my God, we have these old legacy platforms that, somebody built 20 years ago, but that's what we're still using. We expect that to be the case. And so that's where, these kind of systems are ready to plug into just about anything. This is the thing that excited me the most about this project. So I was telling our development team, they're all excited about, CMS, and we can get this done. And I'm like, it is 2025. I'm not sure what marketer is going to be that excited about, great, you took my content from one CMS and now it's in a different CMS. So what? What did you do to make my life easier? Okay, maybe I can get a page published in, a couple hours instead of a couple weeks. That's less annoying, but ultimately it's not moving the needle that much. With Optimizely, they have a tool called Opal, which can be attached to any CMS. And this is the only thing that I've seen so far on the market, and we work with a bunch of different tech partners, that truly is a marketing orchestration tool. There's a lot of systems that will say, hey, oh yeah, our system uses AI. Usually what it does, though, is it produces the AI, the Gen AI. You still have to copy and paste it in. And all it's doing is kind of saving you that time of okay, I've got ChatGPT over here. But there's still a lot of what feels like almost manual processes. Or if it is plugged in, it's only plugged into that one tool. And you're still managing it from somewhere else. This is not just hey, I can keep my marketing campaign plan. But this is a solution where you can say, okay, I need to run a campaign. So we had an example that's, Exentium is coming to DMFS. And when we do that, we have a campaign that includes outbound email. We create a landing page on our website. We create some LinkedIn posts, and we create a HubSpot form. With this, and I've got a longer form video that we can show you. You press a button to create that campaign. It gives you a couple of choices. And it seeds out that content in those systems. So it starts my LinkedIn page, it creates my web page, it goes into HubSpot. and sets up that form. So this is actually a true orchestration tool. But better yet, as that is running, I can also go into Opal when my CEO says, "Oh, you started that campaign. How many emails have we sent out? Has anybody signed up on the form? What was the engagement like?" My CEO asks really random questions. I can't predict them. Opal could allow him, if I wanted to give him access, which I don't. It's really easy to get those questions answered. Instead of having to go to your marketing person who runs your social to say, "How's that doing? Can you send me the number?" Or going into your Power BI that is set up to tell you all the stuff that you thought you wanted, but now the CEO asks you something else. So now you got to dig in. This, to me, is a huge game changer. And so these are just some examples of what that looks like through that process of, okay, here's the landing page, here's what it could create for you. And you can even query this and say, okay, I want you to, as you have this running, I want you to put this together based on the campaign that I had with the best LinkedIn engagement, with the most registrations on my HubSpot form. I can also go into this and say, okay, take a look at this, but also look at these 3 competitors and what are they saying about this event. So there's the competitive analysis piece, there's the historical data, performance data of your other campaigns. And again, to me, this is just facilitating quality and communication. And I still don't see this as coming for anybody's job yet. This is letting marketers do what we've been wanting to do forever. And as a matter of fact, when I first saw Opal, I was like, okay, I've been asking other partners for exactly this set of tools for forever. And it's pretty mature. So I didn't update this for New York, but this is what it did for Chicago. And I can show you at our booth, this isn't just like, hey, here's a draft of the text and go put it in. It created the page on the website. Didn't automatically publish it, but I could set it to automatically publish it if I wanted to. So, kind of to sum this thing up, to me, the more we can get AI to do the basics, the repetitive tasks, it's got to have that second piece. If you leave with anything today, it's don't just take AI results, run them through a couple times, and then go. Use those human brains that you have, use yours, use that creativity, and it may take a pretty significant cultural shift. I know we're largely a tech company, so it's a huge cultural shift for us to go, hang on, let's put on the brakes and let's kind of think a little bit and what else might we want to say? At the very least, it's really it's driving good relationship across verticals. And it's also, I think, inspiring people again with their jobs, which can be pretty tough in a tough economy. So I think that's probably the thing that I'm the most excited about. And finally, if you want to keep in touch, we do have a booth, like I said, where I can show you this stuff. We can also schedule a demo later. But I'd love to stay in touch with you guys. And it looks like, do we have 2 minutes? Quick question, if anybody has any that they want to ask in the full group. All right, if you're like me, you're going to think of 5 questions after this, so feel free to come and find us. And thank you so much.